We have the handshake from Facebook. We have the handshake from YouTube. We have the handshake from Twitch. Are you ready to go on the air?
I am ready.
Okay. So.
Richard, can you make this light just a little bit brighter?
Sure. As long as it
I
doesn't.
love this. I love this, the way it all looks, but
You like the film noir look?
But I can't read as well as I.
You tell me when.
Yeah.
One notch? More?
One notch. No. Yeah, now it's okay.
One notch.
That's fine.
2 notches. How's that?
2 notches.
You happy with that?
Yeah, that now I can see.
Okay.
Better. I could see, but I couldn't see very well.
Okay.
I'm ready?
Just a second here. Okay, Russell.
On the switch?
Yeah, the switch to turn the light on. Waiting for the light. The light is on.
Yeah.
Put the clapper in front of your face. When you hit the clapper, you are on the air.
Good afternoon, evening. No, it's almost 7 o'clock. So it's a little early evening. Sunglasses at midnight on a Sunday, not afternoon, but Sunday evening. It's been hot in Buffalo and humid and some rain, but the beginning of the week was beautiful at the very same time that I had COVID. Now, they tell me I'm over it because I don't register that I'm positive anymore. It wasn't too bad. I just had, coughing and fever and like a bad flu. So last Saturday, Sunday, and Monday were not the pleasantest days, but because the weather was so beautiful, I didn't feel bad. Then, as I started to get better, the weather started to get hotter, and then also these last couple of days haven't been too pleasant. But I'm ready to start, and I'm going to start off with 2 more songs that I have from HITCHY COO Cole Porter writing the music for HITCHY too. I love his songs from that crazy show. It did not, as I told you, get good reviews, and so he was disgusted, and he went back to Paris, and he stayed there, I think, for 5 years, something like that. Okay, let's see. Now, this is self-evident, and I think you'll enjoy it.
In the 1920s, one of Mr. Porter's most, active supporters was a girl around New York whose name was Elsie DeWolf. She became a very, very famous decorator in New York, around the world as a matter of fact, and became Lady Benville shortly after that. Mr. Porter was devoted to her, and she was devoted to him. They celebrated their friendship. He wrote a song about her. About that time, she had decreed, as decorators would do, that only one set of colors would be the smart thing to have in one's home for a long, long time. Mr. Wolf said that black and white would be very much in vogue for a long time. Great combination of colors, I think. And Mr. Porter thought that was a great idea for a song. So he composed a song with her in mind called That Black and White Baby of Mine. Now, since my girlfriend Sal met Miss Elsie DeWolf, they did a revelation. It's left tapped out when mine was full ideas. Interior decoration. For instance, she assumes the colors of our rooms, most important factor in our lives. And if our bedrooms were pink instead of red rooms, there might be many more content and wine. And so she's put all color on her side, and everything she owns is black and white. She's got a black and white coat, a black and white hat, a black and white doggy, and a black and white cat. She's gone so far that she's started to look through the daily advertisements for a black and white cook. A black and white chef, a new Cadillac with a black and white design. Oh, she's
Yeah, well, I love Bobby Short. The reason I know the sound on that song was not too good, but I love the pictures. So I have another recording of Bobby Short singing that song that I'm going to play for you now, with some more pictures of Bobby Short. Better sound. Okay, let's go.
Now, since my girlfriend Sal met Miss Elsie DeWolf, leading decorator of the nation, with all that, what do they call it, AID out there, it's left that gal with her mind simply full of ideas on interior decoration. For instance, she assumes the colors of our rooms are the most important factor in our lives. And if a lot of bedrooms were pink instead of red rooms, there might be many more contented wives. And so she's put all color from her sight, and everything she owns is black and white. She's got a black and white coat, a black and white hat, a black and white doggy, and a black and white cat. She's gone so far that she started to look through the daily advertisements for a black and white cook. She's got a black and white shack, a new Cadillac with a black and white design. Oh, she thinks black and white. She even drinks black and white. That black and white baby of mine. Shack, a new Cadillac with a black and white design. Oh, she thinks black and white. She even drinks black and white. That black and white baby of mine. Hold out, that black and white baby of
mine. Yeah, I love Bobby Short. I have every album that the man ever made. I never saw him in person. He played, and you saw in one of those pictures a DVD that he that presented him at the Cafe Carlisle in New York City, where he played many years. And the other thing you saw was a picture of his book. It's not bad. I like the book. It's called Saloon Singer, and it's a kind of fun read. But Black and White Baby of Mine, I think it is really a fun song, and I'm glad I was able to get it back for you today. So, all for that. One more song from HITCHY COO of 1919, and that is I Introduced. Now, this comes from an album that Ben Bagley made called The Decline and Fall of the World as Seen Through the Eyes of Cole Porter. It was a review back in the 50s in New York City. I saw it. Wonderful. And a recording was made of it. And in that recording, Harold Lang, who was in the show, is singing another song from HITCHY COO 1919, I Introduced. It is delightful.
Hello! Though it's not quite generally known that I'm the one horsepower behind the throne, yet lots of people are in clover, simply due to things that I put over. Just pick up your favorite magazine, peruse the ads, and you'll see what I mean. For each relationship you see is wholly owing to me. For I presented Mr. Morgan to Mr. Hodges. I presented Mr. Pete to Mr. Rogers. I introduced Mr. Cross to Mr. Mark, Mr. Lord to Mr. Taylor, Mr. Tilford to Mr. Park. It's entirely thanks to me, though. Few people know it, that dear old Mr. Shandon met that dear old Mr. Moet. But the greatest introduction that I ever put through was when I presented myself to you.
Presented Mr. Morgan to Mr. Hodges. I presented Mr. P to Mr. Rogers. I introduced Mr. Cross to Mr. Mark, Mr. Lord to Mr. Taylor, Mr. Tilford to Mr. Park. It's entirely thanks to me, though. Few people know it, that dear old Mr. Shandon met that dear old Mr. Moet. But the greatest introduction that I ever put through was when I presented myself to you.
Yeah, well, that's the end of that delightful song. Because you probably don't know, as I don't know, most of his references. But, you know, like Lord and Taylor and Moet and Chandon Moet, Champagne, and maybe several others. But I love that song, and I love the way Harold Lang presents it on that. And if you notice there on the album, 3 other people presented themselves in that show singing songs of Cole Porter. William Hickey, Carmen Alvarez, and Elmarie Wendell. And they have some, if you can get all of that CD, it is really one of my favorite CDs. I play it often. I love Cole Porter. I have practically everything that was ever recorded by Cole Porter. Cole Porter songs, you know, but so be it. Let's get on now. After Hitchy Coo, we had a show called The Little Whopper, among other shows, Apple Blossom and The Little Whopper. I ended with that last week. And from there, a couple of shows that, you know, I have nothing from. This is called Nothing But Love, Harold Orlob. Only played 64 performances. I have nothing from it. Then The Passing Show of 1919, which had music by Gene Schwartz and Sigmund Romberg, and I have one song from it. It played 280 performances, so it wasn't really that much of a failure. It opened on 23 October in the 1919 at the Winter Garden. And the one song I have, though, is from neither Gene Schwartz nor Sigmund Romberg. It's a song called Molly Malone, and it's music by Chris Schoenberg and lyrics by Hal Byers. Okay, let's go on with Molly Malone. It's recorded in 1919. Sound stinks, but I want you to get a feel of it. So...
Forward and then, and the drooping primrose nods as you pass by. The fairies whisper softly that you'll come back soon again, and the bluebirds greeting from the sky. Molly Malone, you are my own. Through the skies of blue, where your love shines through. In all my own, you are alone. The one and trusting, dancing Colleen. Your smile bright red makes glad the days when I'm weary, dreary, and alone. My darling, straight from the heart, you won my heart, Molly Malone, my own.
Yeah. So that was Molly Malone and Rotten Sound, but you got a feel for the day, didn't you? Now, after Nothing But Love and the Passing Show of 1919, Molly Malone came Buddies with music by and lyrics by somebody by B.G. Hilliam. I have nothing from it. It played 259 performances, nothing. Then came 50/50 Limited, and it had a song in it with lyrics by Cole Porter. I cannot find it. It's called I Never Realized. Music and lyrics by Michelle Odeon, and lyrics by Cole Porter. Well, it played 40 performances, and had in it Gertrude Vanderbilt, and it opened on October 27th at the Comedy Theater. Well, then came Just a Minute with, again, music by Harold Orlob. That Man Comes Again. 40 performances. It failed again. I have nothing from it. Then came The Little Blue Devil, music by Harry Carroll, and starred Lillian Lorraine, among others. I have nothing from it. And The Magic Melody with music by Sigmund Romberg, 143 performances. And I do have something from it. It's called Once Upon a Time. I have it on an Edison record 50641 from the period, and I think it is sung by a guy by the name of Louis James. So let's find out. Yeah, well, a lovely song, not one of Sigmund Romberg's best, but anyway, that was from his Magic Melody. I wish I had more, but I don't. But then after the Magic Melody came Irene. It played for 675 performances. It opened on October 18th at the Vanderbilt Theater, and it closed June 18th, 1921. Wow. A long-lived show. Now, I have some stuff for you. I'm going to start off with a medley that Joseph Smith and his orchestra recorded in 1919. It was in a Victor recording, 35695, whatever that helps you with. But anyway, here it is. That's number 7. All right, here we go. Yeah, well, that was Joseph Smith in a medley from Irene. Recording was made, I believe, in 1919. Yes, I told you that, I think. Anyway, but the real starring song from Irene, Alice Blue Gown, and it made Edith Day very famous. And I'm going to play it for you now. It's a beautiful picture of her on the cover of this. What is it? I don't know, her record. Anyway, this record was made in 1920. Edith Day, Alice Blue Gown. Let's go.
And it was till it went, and it wasn't no more. In my sweet little Alice Blue Gown, when I first wandered down into town, I was so proud and shy as I filled every eye, but in every shop window I trimmed passing by. Then in manner of fashion I'd gone, and the world seemed to smile all around. Till it wilted, I wore it, I'll always adore it, my sweet little Alice The little silkworms that made silk for that doll just made that much silk and then crawled in the ground. 'Cause there never was anything like it before, and I don't dare to hope there will be any more. And it's gone, 'cause it just had to be, till it dwells in my memory. In my sweet little Alice Blue Gown, when I first wandered down into town, I was so proud and shy as I filled every eye, but in every shop window I tripped passing by. Then in manner of fashion I'd gone, and the world seemed to smile all around. For it wasn't its mother, it made a church quaint for brothers, my sweet little Alice Blue Gown.
Yeah, a lovely voice she had, lovely voice, and I'm very pleased to have been able to play that for you. I could understand quite a few of her words. A part of that, I'm sure, is due to the fact that it's an old recording. Lovely. If you could catch some of those words that were sort of difficult to read up there, unless you got up close with your glasses. Edith Day did the New York production in 1919, but she also went to London in 1920. So that's that. Okay, back to our next item here, and that is when the show Irene, with a lot of songs in it that did not belong in the original production, but Debbie Reynolds starred in this 1973 actual revival of Irene, and I have the overture with the orchestra conducted by Jack Lee.
Irene, a little bit of salt and sweetness. Irene, a dainty slip of rare completeness. Mannerism, magnetism, eyes of youth inviting, dancing by with glancing eye, the flush of her exciting. Siren, the sort who captures hearts to charm them. Careful, beware. Now she's here, now she's there, followed by her set. Up she goes, down she goes, everybody's pet. Near or far, there you are, captured in the net of Tippity Witch, Irene, oh, dare.
Oh, wow. That's Broadway for you. And here, basically, as a matter of fact, when all is said and done, that was not the overture. It was actually Monty Markham singing Irene. I lost. What did I lose here? Come on. Okay, I'm back on track again. But, of course, the way Broadway did it in 1973 had absolutely nothing to do with the way it was done in 1919. But you got the song Irene, which I couldn't find any other place. And Monty Markham does a fairly good job with it because you can understand most of his words. They do go quite wild there, don't they? Okay, now also from that same recording, I have the overture, and I'm going to play that for you now. And I got some wonderful pictures of Irene back in the day. Let's see. Debbie Reynolds. Excuse me. Yeah, well, of course, that had very little to do with the original Irene. You Made Me Love You was not in the original Eileen. When they did it, Irene, when they revived it, they put a lot of songs in that were not in the original production. And as I believe, I think they took out a lot of songs that had been in the original production. But so be it. That's Broadway. Now, after Irene, which I told you ran 695 performances, was a little show with Charlotte Greenwood. I wish I had her singing something from it. Linger Longer Letty. It played 69 performances. It opened on November 20th, 1919 at the Fulton Theater, and that was that. And then came wait a minute, no, that's not right. After Linger Longer Letty, pages are stuck here, was Aphrodite, a romance of manners from ancient Egypt in 3 acts, play by Pierre Ronda and George Hazelton. Well, I don't have anything from it. It only played, well, it did play 148 performances. It had opened on November 23rd at the Century Theater. Don't have anything from it. Then came The Rose of China. Strangely enough, one of the interesting things about The Rose of China is that among the stars in it was Edna May Oliver. She had a movie career later on. It also was Oscar Shaw, who had some success later on, particularly. Well, we'll come across them. I know. See, and this was actually, as a matter of fact, apparently a beautiful show designed by Joseph Urban, of all people, but it only ran for 47 performances. So that's that. The Rose of China. I wish I had something from it, but I don't. But then came Elsie Janis and her gang, and it played for only 55 performances at the George Cohen Theater, opened on December 1st, 1919. Now, Elsie Janis has had a long career. She also was fascinating for her work during the First World War. And this Elsie Janis and the gang have some music in it that I don't have any recordings of it. I have other things, but among other things, it says that towards the end of the show, Miss Janis, no telling what she will sing. So I will supply you with that. But there were references to the war in her performances that day, with such songs as "Along the Rocky Road to Dublin," "Let's Go Somewhere in America," "Smiles." And they also did the Dogtown Strutters Ball, but they also did songs like "It's Great to Meet a Girl from Home," "Just a Little Touch of Paris," "I Hope There Will Be Just a Little," I love them all, but just a little bit. "I'll Play La Guerre," the Heine Fiftet, "Just a Little After Taps," Jazz Rank, "Just an Idea in One Scene," "I've Give me Moonlight when I think of the jazz band in the fatherland. But I have for you a performance. Why I read all that stuff, I have no idea. But I have for you a performance that she does with some very interesting photography that I'll show you on the videos. Okay, let's do that.
As the winds of war swept across Europe a century ago, a young woman explored the war-ravaged battlefields of the Western Front. For 6 months, she encountered Allied troops amid the slaughter and stalemate of the Great War. As her voice rose above the din of combat, little did she know that her actions would initiate an exchange of ideas in supporting troop morale that is with us now a century later. Though largely forgotten today, her memoirs of World War I are perhaps best characterized by a stanza from Lieutenant Colonel John McRae's epic poem, In Flanders Fields.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below.
Elsie Bierbauer was born on March 16, 1889 in Columbus, Ohio. First stepping onto the stage at the age of 4, by the time she was 10 she was performing for President McKinley in the White House, before touring on vaudeville at age 11 as Little Elsie. Throughout her childhood, her mother Janice helped to guide her career, and would accompany her on her vaudeville tours. It was on the vaudeville circuit that she took the stage name of Elsie Janice, derived from her mother's first name. She soon appeared on Broadway at the age of 16, headlining in one of the most popular plays of the era, The Vanderbilt Cup, in 1906. In the late 19th century, political and military alliances began to polarize Europe. A growing arms race between England and Germany spread to other nations by the end of the century. Political volatility in the Balkans earned the region the nickname, the powder keg of Europe. Following the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand by Serbian nationalist Gavrilo Princip in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914, nations of Europe mobilized for war. While the United States attempted to remain neutral, Elsie Janice's involvement in World War I began in 1914 as well. While appearing in the Passing Show in London, she watched England's young men march off singing, "It's a Long Way to Tipperary." Unfortunately, the war would claim her fiancé, British actor Basil Hallam, who was killed in the first months of the conflict. Upon returning to the United States in 1915, Janice created a vaudeville act that doubled as a recruiting tool by singing arrangements of patriotic songs in an effort to raise funds for Liberty Bonds. Following the United States declaration of war in 1917, Elsie Janice and her mother took a passenger liner to Europe in 1918 with the sole intention of performing for Allied troops fighting in France.
Elsie Janice explored the trench environment in ways that were both typical and atypical for a civilian along the Western Front. On the one hand, she was really atypical because she had a chauffeur, she had license to go where she wanted, she had a lot of independence, and that was really unusual. Something that was maybe more typical was that she was mostly in rest areas, so an area a few miles behind the lines. This meant that she could hear explosions, she could see them. She has a few sort of near misses in terms of sharpshooters. She explores and experiences the trenches in terms of all the bad things, the discomforts, the weather, the wounding. She's certainly seen plenty of soldiers being wounded. But for the most part, she is seeing this war as a bit of an adventure.
But Janice was not only exploring the war zones. She was exploring a new definition of support for those in the military. From Paris to the front lines of the tool sector, the doughboys appreciated how Elsie Janice cut short her music hall successes to bring her talents to the troops, sometimes doing 9 45-minute shows a day, In just 6 months, Elsie Janis would make over 600 appearances and would be given the title of Honorary Commanding Officer. The men of the American Expeditionary Forces, from privates to generals, were indeed heartened by her brave, touching, and patriotic encounters with them, and dubbed her the sweetheart of the AEF.
Elsie Janis was clearly in the vanguard, a standard bearer of entertaining troops overseas, and although certainly lesser known, she was the one that got it all started.
Soldiers loved her. An encounter with her was interactive. She began every show with this call out to them, "Are we downhearted?" Soldiers would shout back, "No," and everybody sort of waited for the end when there would be these sing-alongs with her. So the encounter was a very personal moment for most individuals. And then the press just covered her with lavish praise. People learned about her. She was one of the most famous people during the First World War, and in that sense, the encounter with her was a shared experience for Americans during the First World War.
During the Great War, when women served as nurses, ambulance drivers, and telephone operators, Elsie Janis organized and financed her own mission to entertain and support Allied soldiers before the creation of the USO and independent of the assistance of the YMCA or the Red Cross. She described her encounters with the soldiers of the AEF as the greatest experience of her life. Finally, at the 11th hour on the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, the Great War was over. In all, 9 million men had died, forever a testament to the ruin of rage. After returning home to the United States, Elsie Janis wrote about her wartime encounters in The Big Show, My 6 Months with the American Expeditionary Forces in 1919.
We laughed and even sang. I told them all my new stories and sang anything they asked for, and felt really useful to humanity for the first time in my life.
We see her in this book really cultivating the persona that made her so popular. She is the comrade in arms. There is a kind of pathos in how she describes the experience of singing to these soldiers and then maybe a few short hours watching them heading to the front lines, maybe to their death.
Following the war, she wrote and produced a new stage revue entitled Elsie Janis and Her Gang, a show that was inspired by her wartime encounters and included a cast of ex-servicemen, and recreated them in a 1926 Vitaphone musical short film entitled Behind the Lines. Differing perspectives questioned her motives. Very few suggested that she was attempting to advance her career. Perhaps this point of view is not entirely without merit. However, in the years following the Great War, her dedication to those in the armed services remained resolute, long after the headlines ceased. When her mother passed away in 1932, Elsie Janis retired from the stage. The only appearance she made were for members of the service. Elsie Janis's encounters with Allied troops during World War I began an exchange of ideas in supporting troop morale that served as the model for the development of the United Service Organization in 1941.
President Roosevelt founded the USO in 1941, and he was the Assistant Secretary of the Navy during World War I prior to becoming president. And I have no doubt that Elsie Janis's performances made an impact on him, and he remembered that. And as he saw the clouds of war coming in 1941, he realized what a difference that made for our troops.
During World War II, she was again drawn to the service and sacrifice of American troops, frequently visiting the National Soldiers' Home in West Los Angeles, appearing with emerging film stars who continued what she began in 1918. Exploring war zones and encountering troops in exchange for their appreciation guaranteed that these programs would continue in the years following her 6 months in France. When Elsie Janis died on February 26, 1956, vaudeville and early film star Mary Pickford said, "This ends the vaudevillian era." She is privately interred in the Great Mausoleum at Forest Lawn in Glendale, California. Since her efforts on the front lines in France a century ago, performers from Bob Hope to Martha Raye and Jay Leno have followed her lead by performing in combat zones around the world. Today, as people pass her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, most have long forgotten Elsie Janis to the rigors of time. And while her name has long faded from the flashing billboards of vaudeville, Broadway, and Hollywood, as the first American entertainer to explore war zones with the purpose of entertaining troops, her encounters with them would lead to an exchange of ideas in developing programs to increase the morale of American soldiers fighting abroad that remains with us today.
Even now, a century later, scarce heard amid the guns below, the larks, still bravely singing, fly.
Yeah, I have to close up now. More Elsie Janis next week. I hope you were as pleased by having that as more Elsie Janis. Good night, everybody.